Welcome to this week 8 wrap up of our 16th season of Blood, Sweat, and Beers. That's pretty much as good as the technology is going to get today. As you can see, our commish is indisposed, so he asked me to fill in for our recap. Why? I don't know. I'm the newly anointed number one overall ranked team in our league. Maybe he wanted to pick the brain of greatness, see if any wonderful pearls come out. Maybe every other person he preferred to have fill in had a conflict. Oh, we may never know, but let's not get bogged down in that. We should move on. Normally, the commission would have a thought provoking question at this point in the recap. So, this is what I was thinking of. Week 8 in the books now, over halfway through the season. At least from a fantasy standpoint, kind of hard with 17 games to have a true halfway point in the NFL season. But how's it going? Trends, small sample sizes now become more pronounced. Are you surprised positively, negatively about anything with your team, with the league in general? I know for me, after the draft, I was feeling pretty good about my wide receiver base. I was definitely drinking the, MHJ Kool-Aid there at the beginning of the year. Thought he'd be pretty amazing right away. Definitely had some fits and starts at the beginning of that career. Some, concussion issues too. Same thing with Olave. I thought he was going to be a stud number one, good value. That didn't turn out that way, at least so far. And also Godwin. I thought I got a really good deal in the draft on him, a good pick. It turned out to be that way until, of course, a dislocated ankle. So all of a sudden, my wide receiver base is looking a little more sus, as the kids would say these days. And then quarterback, too. I normally don't take a quarterback too early in the draft, but Mahomes was kind of falling down the list. And I thought I got a pretty good selection there. Kind of a set it, forget it quarterback, don't have to be streaming. And that hasn't really played out the way I had hoped. The late season trend from last year wasn't just a one-off with Mahomes. It seems it's the new normal where he just doesn't do great from a fantasy standpoint, but the team's undefeated, so probably won't be changing those ways anytime soon. So if only Cousins could play the Bucs every week, I might be in decent shape. But yeah, what's going right or wrong for you guys? Well, let's look back to the week that was. No buys in week 8, so didn't have to navigate that. I'll go off kind of what I see on my screen. Just imagine there's some cool, helpful graphics up in this area, but I identify more as a John than an Adam when it comes to video editing. So we're going to have to kick it old school. You have to follow along on your device, I guess. So the first game that I see is the battle of the number one seeds. Pretty good match there. Keith definitely gave up a good fight. I was a little stressed putting together my lineup. I know Adam a while back was asking about how much projected point totals come into play when you're setting your lineup. For me, it was kind of a tale of two cities when it came to defenses against some of the players. It was either like a really top-rated 1-2 defense or like 30 to 32nd ranked. So I did make some gut calls, which maybe didn't pan out exactly how I'd hoped. One did, certainly Tillman there with the Browns. But at least it didn't really matter because my bench all did pretty good as well. So 172 starting, just under 130 on the bench. So was that the first time in Blood, Sweat, and Beers history an overall roster, starters, and bench went over 300 points in a week? That seems right. No need to fact check because it probably happens all the time. But it felt special to me. So our next game is Gloop and the Booger Pickers. So that was an interesting one. Certainly kind of went back and forth there for a bit. For H2, if he had done the homer play, just put Ladd in at either wide receiver spot or the flex spots, it seems like he would have won out this week. So when it comes to the pop, situation. I'm not going to go down that road too much. I mean, I'm sure Adam has the kind of algorithm he uses to make it very easy. I'll just kind of go on a basic nature. And you might think, well, does he even know how to calculate the pop percentage and scores? Let's not, get too deep in the weeds with that. Just say I'm impatient. Okay. I don't have time to do all that math. So that would have been a bit of a change for him, certainly, if he could have done that little adjustment. Donnie, Chris left some points on his bench as well. Let's look at our next game here. We got the Pet Detectives and Jersey Birds. Pretty good showing by Joey, trying to get that high score for the week on Monday night, using a couple Steelers. That still feels icky for somebody who used to be from Cleveland. But his team did perform quite well, certainly. Not his usual, left most of his points on the bench week, so that's something new for sure. But, Baker Mayfield, though, that would have been a nice start, I guess. So for Ian, his free fall, as he called it, seems to kind of be continuing here. Let's see if he had any. I don't know that he really could have made up the difference, even with a perfect roster choice. Then we've got Master and Commander and the Nuts going at it. Pretty close matchup there. Decent scores. For Adam, I believe, I might need a fact check on this, but if he had started the Broncos defense over the Packers, which is realistic, kind of a coin flip probably, and started his boy, Jaden, over Burrow, I believe he would have beat John by less than a point. But maybe he was worried about the injury with Jaden, didn't want to take that chance. But, man, it's extra hard when it's your own homer team that you're leaving on the bench. And then our last matchup there, we got Aaron and Seth. Good week by Seth, certainly. It's great that CD decided to go off on Sunday nights. Helped him to not have to worry about, which quarterback should I have started? Because Love, he got injured during the game. You can never really anticipate that happening. But 2 quarterbacks on his bench outscored Love. So good thing that didn't come into play. But that's the crutch you bear when you have 3 starting quarterbacks on your team, certainly. So as we look over to the standings now, as you might see, I don't know if I mentioned this, the new number 1 overall ranked team. So Keith and myself were still there in first place. It's interesting, if H2 would have started his guy Ladd, we would have ended up with only 2 500 or better than 500 teams. Everyone else would have been 4 or worse. So shout out to my Cardinals today in first place in real NFL. And you might say, well, that's ridiculous. They're only 4-4. But that's the majority of our league right now. So still some pretty good playoff percentages out there, even for our kind of bottom of the barrel, not looking so hot teams there. Galoop and Pet Detectives 2-6, but they still have a playoff percentage of 14 or better. So always a hope, certainly. We can look to the points scored, points against. It's not that exciting, especially after Adam called me out last week for being in first place but not having scored that much. This week helped a little bit for myself. Still middle of the pack, though. But I'm sure he would say something snarky about the fact that I have kind of by far the least points against. And my response to that is hashtag sorry, not sorry. I can't control who I'm playing week to week, and I feel like I deserve a little bit of a good positive spin. It's been a couple rough years here, blood, sweat, and beers for yours truly. I came on the scene, I think 2017, which is kind of ridiculous because it is a long time ago, and I still feel like one of the new guys. And rookie season, made it to the championship game, taking the world by storm. I got beat by somebody called Keith Jr., who I'm not sure is really an actual person. But then since then, it's been a lot of kind of middle range or worse finishes. So even if it is a little bit smoke and mirrors, I'll definitely take at least a nice start to a season. Give me some hope for the second half coming up. Well, as we look to week 9 here, we got some interesting matchups. We got our 2 lowest record teams against each other again. I think that might kind of be a replay of week 5 when they were both winless, and it's like, well, at least somebody will get a win. I guess at least somebody will get up to 3 wins this week, as long as there isn't a tie, which would be extra depressing. What else we got going on here? Well, our annual petition, really a begging by our commish to take Keith down, continues. I thought 2 weeks ago Harrison was gonna do it, but then Keith kind of roared back and took that week. I did my part this past week. You guys are welcome. So now, Puzzles, you're up to try to man up and take down Keith, who just always seems like he's doing good somehow, by hook or by crook. I don't know how that guy does it. And then to the Harrison girls, I have a plead as well. It's time to maybe change up the booger picker's name. I think Donnie Chris is getting a little too comfortable with his little Ralph logo and embracing that team. He's on a little bit of an upswing here. Selfishly, as I play in this week, maybe we can come up with some fresh blood on the naming convention side of things. So certainly some things to look forward to this week. Hopefully you guys all have a fun time.